International, so international, international, so international.
Never sleep, I like clouds and days. I'm spending sleep. a top try, see a man topless, even a stick is gay. Hugging my brothers and say that I love them, but I don't swing that way. The man them celebrate Eid, the trap store running on Christmas Day. Somebody tell Doja Cat that I'm trying to indulge in that. In my grey tracksuit, see the bulge in that. See the motion clap when you're throwing it back. These females planning on doing me wrong, so I'm grabbing a dom at the Trojan pack. Post the location after we're gone, can't slip and let them know where we're at. I don't know about you, but I value my life. Cause imagine I die, and I ain't made 100 M's yet. There's so much things I ain't done yet, like fucking a flight attendant. I don't party, but I heard Cardi there, so fuck it, I might attend it. Gotta get back, sometimes I wonder how life would have been if I never did take them risks and would have I prospered. Floating and I won't go under. Been out of town for a month, absence made the love grow fonder. UK rapper, UK drill, gotta mention my name if you talk about the genre. Alright, how can I be homophobic? I'm in this game. Hit man in a top try, see a man topless, even the stick is gay. Hugging my brothers and say that I love them, but I don't swing that way. The man them celebrate Eid, the trap still running on Christmas Day.
Changing cause of you, it's upside down. I'm lonely. Should've known better, should've known you're my best friend. Come back here, give me one more try. I can see my whole world changing. There's no need to leave if I can be with you. What I did was wrong, I'm sorry. I didn't know how much I really missed you. Missed you, really missed you. 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 I'm sorry. I can see my whole world changing. There's no need to leave if I can be with you. What I did was wrong, I'm sorry. I didn't know how much I really missed you.
Show the lights that stop me, turn to stone. I'll be shining when I'm alone. And so I tell myself that I'll be strong and dreaming when they're gone. 'Cause they're calling, calling, calling. Keep on calling, calling, calling. Oh, show the lights that stop me, turn to stone. I'll be shining when I'm alone.
Off my face, don't know where I am, cause I got my drugs from Amsterdam. face, don't know where I am, cause I got my drugs from Amsterdam.
Ay.
Off my face, don't know where I am, cause I got my drugs from Amsterdam.
Ay.
Off my face, don't know where I am, cause I got my drugs from Amsterdam.
ਨੀਵੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਚੀਰ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਪੱਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਕੜਾ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਨੀਵੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਚੀਰ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਪੱਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਕੜਾ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ
Off my face, don't know where I am, cause I got my drugs from Amsterdam.
Ay.
ਨੀਵੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਚੀਰ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਪੱਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਕੜਾ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਨੀਵੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਚੀਰ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਪੱਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਕੜਾ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ
Fuck you, any mom, any sister, any job, any broke ass car, and that's shit you call art. Fuck you, any friends that I'll never see again. Everybody but your dog, you can all fuck off. I swear I meant to mean the best when it ended. Even tried to bite my tongue when you started shit. Now you texting all my friends, asking questions. They never even liked you in the first place. I was into you, but I'm over it now. I was trying to be nice, but nothing's getting through. So let me spell it out. A, B, C, D, E, F. Where's your mom? Where's your sister? Where's your job? Any broke ass car? That's what you call art. Fuck you, any friends that I'll never see again. Everybody but your dog, you can all fuck off. Any mom, any sister, any job, any broke down car, and the things you call art. Forget you, any friends that I'll never see again. Everybody but your dog, you can all get lost. F you, and your mom, and your sister, and your job, and your broke down car, and the things you call art. Forget you, any friends that I'll never see again. Everybody but your dog, you can all get lost.
Here we are. A new year. Another opportunity. An opportunity of a lifetime. This is the year that we said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna be stronger. Instead of fearful. This is my year.
choices, I end up in crisis. I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving. Guess who got tired of my scheming? It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero. I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Baby, I'ma have the best fucking night of my life. And wherever it takes me, I'm down for the ride. Baby, don't you know I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. 'Cause I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Baby, I'ma have the best fucking night of my life. And wherever it takes me, I'm down for the ride. Baby, don't you know I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. 'Cause I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. Baby, I'ma have the best fucking night of my life. And wherever it takes me, I'm down for the ride. Baby, don't you know I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright. So I just let it go, let it go. Oh na 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 na, no, I don't care no more, care no more. Oh na 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 na, so come on, let me know, let me know. Put your hands on me, na 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 na, baby, nothing's gonna stop us tonight.
This ain't a song for the broken hearted. A silent prayer for faith departed. I ain't gonna be just a face in the crowd. You're gonna hear my voice when I shout it out. It's my
One more drink, she said. I think I'm losing my head now. Tonight we'll make bad memories. One more drink, she said. We know there's no turning back now. We love to make bad memories. One more drink, she said. I think I'm losing my head now. Tonight we'll make bad memories. One more drink, she said. We know there's no turning back now. We love to make bad memories. One more drink, she said. I think I'm losing my head now. Tonight we'll make bad memories. One more drink, she said. I think I'm losing my head
get down tonight. 'Cause it's always a good time. Slept in all my clothes like I didn't care. Hopped into a cab, take me anywhere. I'm in if you're down to get down tonight. 'Cause it's always a good time. It's always a good time. It's always a good time.
Ich will Immos, ich will alles, ich will fliegen wie bei Marvel. Ich hab Hunger, also nehm ich mir alles vom Buffet. Will ein Haus für meine Mama an der Küste von Catania. Zum Frühstück Canapés und ein Whiteberry Lillet. Ich will Immos, ich will alles, ich will fliegen wie bei Marvel. Ich hab Hunger, also nehm ich mir alles vom Buffet. Will ein Haus für meine Mama an der Küste von Catania. Zum Frühstück Canapés und ein Whiteberry Lillet. Ich will Immos, ich will alles, ich will fliegen wie bei Marvel. Ich hab Hunger, also nehm ich mir alles vom Buffet. Will ein Haus für meine Mama an der Küste von Catania. Zum Frühstück Canapés und ein Whiteberry Lillet.
First impressions can be wrong, so let me show you now. This vibe we got is coming on strong. So lay down your body next to mine, let me breathe in your scent, and give me your wild side, baby. No one's innocent. Cause if you mind, then you might know what the pictures are love. I'll let you ride, let you die, let you go out of your mind. This is my ding dong, diggy daga ding dong, my kind of love. This is my ding dong, diggy daga ding dong, my kind of love. Cause if you mind, then you might know what the pictures are love. I'll let you ride, let you die, let you go out of your mind. This is my
Love is just a history that they may prove, and when you're gone, I'll tell them my religion's you. When punctures comes, you kill the king upon his throne. I'm ready for their stones. I'll dance, dance, dance with my hands, hands, hands above my head, head, head. Like Jesus said, I'm gonna dance, dance, dance with my hands, hands, hands above my head. Dance together, forgive him before he's dead, because
Check out Microsoft. Let's make it happen. But give me 1 second because we're actually doing a stream over on the Tube today for the first time in a long time. So I got to give everybody on YouTube an official good morning. Welcome to the stream. And that's that. We're going to just dive right into it. Start doing some TA. Get you guys prepared for the trading session. A little bit early today. About 9 minutes early. But we are starting with Microsoft for Mr. Cole. So let's do it. I'm going to clear everything out as well. And let's just, let's go top down, man. See what we have here. And this, all of this right here definitely stands out to me. And that wasn't on earnings. So we had this initial drop on down, push back up for a few days. Seller stepped in with so much force that it caused price to gap down and have that impulsive move that next day. So we know that there's going to potentially be some unfilled orders in this area of daily supply. So that's a pretty large area. We can definitely drill this down to the lower time frames or just pair it with other levels that could be in this zone, like tighter zones of support resistance. But that's the first thing that stands out to me was just that massive drop back down where seller stepped in with so much force and it caused price to open lower the next day and continue for 2 days after. That was a pretty big drop. So again, that's going to be an area where we could still see some unfilled sell orders, which again, this is going to create this area to be an area of resistance where price may struggle to get above. That's the first thing that I see, but let's continue to do some analysis and see if there's anything else there. We already came into it yesterday. We dropped out of it just a little bit. But is there any other tighter key levels inside of that zone? I would say yes. The first little area that stands out is where we kind of just found a lot of good support here back in like June. So I got this tighter little zone of just standard support resistance between 445.65 to 446.71. And I just see how we broke above it, we held it, and then tapped it, came down again, tapped it, came down again, tapped it. And that's where we stepping in before that gap down. So at least we can see that we have a nice tight zone of daily resistance right there between 445.65 to 446.71, which is inside of that larger zone of some daily supply. So at least we can really start to hone in and get super dialed in on a pretty nice tighter level of resistance where price could come to and start to see some sellers step on in. So let's just color code these a little bit differently just so they stand out. But yeah, that's going to be the first main area of resistance that I see. I can't remember what your zone was, but we can always compare the two.
So the one you just put on, I was real close to. I got it 446.78. to 446.41.
Yeah,
I
you're right
have
there.
5 touch points on that one.
Yeah, you have yours nice and tight. Yep, but you're looking in the same region. So as long as your eyes are in the same region and you're looking at the same points, we're on the same track. Then we can just go through and tighten it up without taking away how valid it's going to be. And then if we look to the downside, as far as any levels of potential support, I've got this very nice zone between 441.34 to 441.97. I can see how we struggled here a little bit. Got above it, held it, gap down, high a day at that level before that big drop, then came back here, tapped it 2 times before dropping again. So we can see that was a previous key level of resistance that we broke through yesterday. If we come back down into that region, we could see that old resistance level turn into support. The buyers step on in off that level and see a little bit more upside on Microsoft. So I feel pretty good with what we have. Now I want to go down into a 5-minute and just kind of see where we're at today. I would assume Microsoft is going to be pushing up with the overall market. So we know we got some nice daily support down between 441.34 to 441.97. We know we have that bigger zone of some daily supply overhead. It's literally between like 444 and 448, so it's huge. But then we got really dialed in to find some really nice key significant zones of overhead resistance. And that main zone of resistance that I see, that's also inside of that bigger zone of supply, that zone's 445.65 to 446.71. So the way I would look to trade Microsoft today is I would see if it can open, come up into that zone, assess price action, and if we see it's struggling to get through that zone and we see some sellers stepping in, I would go short off that zone and take it short back down into my bottom zone of support. But if we come down into support first, for example, and then we have good price action down at that zone and we hold it on up, I would consider getting long up into our next zone of resistance. I'm more sold on the short simply because we're also inside of that daily zone of supply. I would prefer the short on down versus trying to get long off support into all that supply. But again, I would consider the long if it looks good, knowing we could still see some upside. But honestly, in the next 33 minutes when market opens, we're going to be opening pretty close to the zone. I'd let it open, see if we get to that zone and top out. And if so, look for your short back down to the 442s on Microsoft. That's what I see, Brother Ben. Does that help you out?
Yes, it does.
Awesome sauce. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's all we have on Microsoft. But I do like it. I like the potential short today. I think there's potential here for a nice little day trade to the short side.
Yep, the only thing I did different than you was add one more zone below the ones we got.
Below this one here?
Yep.
Yep. And so we can go down, and I'm sure you're looking at probably this region here. You can tighten it up, but yeah, I'm sure you're probably somewhere in that 436 to 437 level.
Yep.
Yep. And so that's another valid zone down below for sure. But since we're going to be potentially opening near that top zone in that daily supply, I would just look for the short down to the 442. That's still about 4 points to the downside. You get 4 points to the downside on a even 0 DTE trade today for a quick scalp. Those things will print. That could be a very nice trade for you. Microsoft to the top of the watch list. Let's keep that one on watch today. I kind of like it a little bit. Pretty decent, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cheap. I mean, I think it's a good one for me to look into right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been, analyzing it for the past, week or two. Becoming more familiar with it, how it moves, how it respects its zones. You're getting to know the stock. You're becoming more confident with it to trade it. This is definitely one of those stocks that you now have on the top of the watch list, and when it's setting up and giving you opportunity, at least you feel confident to trade it.
Yep.
All right. Love it. So we got Microsoft looking pretty good. There's another one, Coin, that's on my watch list for today. And we were talking about Coin a couple of weeks ago. How Coin is literally just stuck in this daily channel. So we had that initial big push on up. But after we found resistance, we've just found ourselves in a bit of this sideways consolidation on the daily. And we're just stuck in this daily channel with top channel resistance being 336 and bottom channel support being 274. Now, why does this stand out to me today? Well, it's based on what we did yesterday. We actually gapped up above the top end of that channel. So that was starting to indicate a potential break to the upside, right? Because we actually gapped up above top channel resistance, but we didn't hold that 336S support and continue higher. What did we actually see yesterday on coin? We got back inside that daily channel and actually retested it 3 times as intraday resistance, validating that's an area that's being respected, that 336 top end of that daily channel. So what I would like to see today is if coin gets back to that 336, I'm curious to see what happens, right? If we come back up to 336, the top end of that daily channel, and we see what we saw yesterday where sellers hold this down and we just cannot get back above 336, I would consider getting short on coin today. I'd be looking for a target back down into these lows from yesterday. That's going to put you right around like 315 to 316. That's about a 20-point potential drop to the downside just back into yesterday's lows. Below 316, then you're looking at $300 psychological support on coin being another target. And then if we just continue to fade and fall, fade and fall, fade and fall, it's very, very possible that we see coin get back down to the bottom end of the channel before we see it pushing back up. So do I think it's going to come down to 274 today? Absolutely not. But is this a great potential day trade opportunity that, if executed properly, could turn into a nice little short-term swing trade? 100%. So if we do, again today, respect the top end of that daily channel as intraday resistance and we fail to get back above 336, that's where I want to be looking to get short and play some puts with a target back down around 316 today. We hit that target today. What I'm looking to do is take probably a good chunk of that position off the table, get paid, and then hold maybe 20 to 30% of that position as a swing trade to see if we continue lower into next week. All right, so that's coin. I think coin has potential. So let's keep this one on watch today. You guys have any questions about coin?
Nope.
And we could take an extension from yesterday's swing high to swing low as well. Get an idea of do we have any confluence with that extension. And so when we take our fib extension from yesterday's high into yesterday's low, we do have that 336 level that lines up to the penny with that 38.2 extension. So that gives you another little confluence there. And then just scanning between different time frames, and then we can see we have this 15-minute fair value gap right above that 336. So we can see that 15-minute fair value gap that was created along that pretty nice drop on back down. Price never came back into it. That's on a 15-minute. We can see if there's a 30-minute, there's still that 30-minute fair value gap. So it's a 30-minute and a 15-minute fair value gap. And you can run that all the way down into a 5-minute, tighten it up a little bit, but still see there's that overlapping fair value gap on a 30, a 15, and a 5. So even if we do wick above 336, that's okay. I would honestly want to see it wick above 336, come into that fair value gap, and then push out of it. Then start to set up for a short off 336 to get the position on. So if we see something like that where we get a false break above 336 into those overlapping fair value gaps on the 30, 15, and 5-minute to fall out of that fair value gap back below 336 and then to stay below 336, that would be the ideal setup to play coin short today. All right. So I like what we have here on coin. The more analysis we do, the more we see, and it's starting to look pretty good here. We got coin and Microsoft, our top 2 individual stocks for today that look pretty good. Is there anything else you want to analyze besides the SPY, the Qs, and IWM? Anything else on your watch list? Let's take a look at it, because honestly, I think the focus will be on these individual stocks today as the SPY and the Qs are pushing back into all-time highs. I'm just not a fan of trading trades when stocks are hitting all-time highs.
I have Wayfair if no one's looking into anything.
For a day trade?
It looks like more a swing trade.
Okay. Let's do this. I'll definitely review this, but if anybody else has a stock for a potential day trade, let's review that first. If not, I'll be more than happy to take a look at Wayfair. But since it's a swing trade, that's something we could always do after market open if we have anybody else with any other stocks that they want to take a look at. But again, if not, let's look at Wayfair. I know you've been analyzing this one for a while. Nothing? All right. So, a couple things. Just kind of zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, we can clearly see that we've just been beaten down for quite a long time. And then here since, like August of 2023, you start to see that we have some pretty valid downtrends that are being respected. So you got this bigger picture downtrend right here that if we ever get to it, could be a point where we start to see price reverse and fall. We do have this shorter term downtrend that's actually being validated this week. So if we go back to the high from like May 13th, we can connect this lower high from October 9th. You actually see the last 2 days, we've come into that trend line, tapped it here on Wednesday, rejected, tapped it here on Thursday, got rejected. And that's showing us that sellers are starting to step in off this multi-month downtrend. And we can see that it is being respected as resistance. So that's like the very first thing that I see is we're just struggling to get above that downtrend, and that could be an area where we start to see a bit of a short-term pullback here on Wayfair, just again looking at that downtrend. But I like to find as many other separate reasons as possible, so we'll just keep doing some analysis. We'll take a fib extension from swing high to swing low, and honestly, that's not really where the move started here. So we're going to drag that extension up to the actual swing highs right in that region here. Bring it on down into the swing low, take it back up to the swing highs. And you kind of see some resistance forming off that 38.2 as well. So that's where that 38.2 extension is at, where you kind of seen it top out the past couple of days, right around that 38.2 extension level, which is right in line with that multi-month downtrend. So you have those 2 points that overlap. And not only is that just the 38.2 extension, but if you zoom out, you can see that that region has been an area of support resistance for quite some time. So there's actually a nice zone of resistance right in that region where that 38.2 is. And we can see that that is a very, very key level. I mean, look at how many times we've respected the level of support, big move away from it. Retest as resistance, big move away, resistance, support, all that support, support, support. We've hit that level many, many times. That is a significant level of daily support resistance. And so that zone, without tightening it up too much, that's right around this $49.17 to $50.42 level. You just see how many times we've hit that level and respected it beautifully. I mean, we could probably tighten this up a little bit if we wanted to, but at least we know we're right in that region. And that's where you have quite a few confluences already lining up. So we're coming back into a pretty significant zone of daily resistance, number one. Number two, you're coming into point 3 of this multi-month downtrend. You have validated that downtrend the past 2 days as resistance. So that's number 2. And then number 3, you run your fib extension from swing high to swing low. This is a 38.2 retracement into that multi-month downtrend into a pretty significant daily zone of resistance. If I was looking for any kind of trade on Wayfair, it would actually be here where all 3 of those confluences line up, looking for a potential little pullback. I would say to come down and at least truly fill this gap around 44 bucks. We got close to filling the gap. We never did. That would be the next area that I could expect to see buyers step on in if we ever come down and fill that gap and see some kind of a gap fill bounce. So that'd be a good first target. To the short side would be 44. At entries would be somewhere in the 49s. So that's all the analysis on the daily.
Okay.
Right now, you're pushing above all that resistance. So you're above resistance. You're above the trend line. You're above that 38.2 when you drill this down into a 5-minute. So it looks like we may be gapping up above all that resistance. So now we see that gap up above all that resistance. We come down and we see it hold as great support. I think there could be a little bit more upside today, potentially up around like 52.5. I would say it would be like the next area to the upside that we could see Wayfair push to would be like 52.50 if we hold all of that lower resistance that we're above this morning as support.
Okay. I saw the. You go on a weekly.
Uh-huh.
Pretty much the candle from October 14th. Is it October 14th? Yeah.
Yeah.
Morning, everyone.
Mr. Matt, what's up, man?
Good morning. Pretty much.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you got that nice little drop on down, that impulsive move to the downside.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, yeah, if you're marking up that entire candle, I mean, the bottom end of that candle, right into the close, actually, is at like 52. What level did I see on the daily? I was looking at, yeah, like 52.
Yeah, I have
the next level of resistance. That's up against the 200 SMA. You got some of that daily, so maybe some unfilled orders left because you did have a bit of a gap down on that weekly candle after that nice drop on off initially. I think that's a nice area where you could start to see more selling than buying for sure. And you're going to have multiple confluences as well on top of what you notice.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see that trend line until you mentioned it right now. So
we're above it. We have that zone. We're above it. We had that 38.2 extension level. We're gapping above it. We have that trend line that you've tapped the past 2 days as resistance. You're above it. So with that being said, when we see stocks gap up, not like break intraday for the intraday break and retest, but when we have stocks gap up above significant levels of resistance, I like to play it long if we at least come back down and back test all of that, higher time frame resistance is intraday support. So, I mean, if we hold above like 50 bucks a day, for example, and find great support at that level, that's back testing the trend line as potential support, that zone of support, that might be an area where you can play this long up to like 52 and then sit back, relax, and see if the short starts to set up right around that 52 to 52.50 region. But I think there could be a couple points of upside potential to capitalize on that to the long side on Wayfair.
Okay. Yeah.
Right on, man. So hopefully that brings a couple other things to your attention. That's what I like doing is like you guys go out there, do all of your analysis, and then I come in and just give you what I see. Sometimes things line up to the penny and it's exact. Sometimes there's other things that I see that just helps, establish more confluences for you guys. But with about 17 minutes until market open, I want to make sure we get you guys up to speed on the SPY, the Qs, and IWM. Do you think we have a whole lot today? I do not think we have a whole lot today. We had really good data this morning, good non-farm payrolls data. Unemployment came in line with the estimate. Market loves that. Market's seen a nice push. I mean, you got the SPY going from 606 to 608. You had QQQ go from around 521.50 up towards around 523.50. So a nice couple dollar push to the upside. So if we're on the daily, we're sitting at all-time highs. And I get this question a lot. Josh, do you find it challenging to find key significant levels at all-time highs? Yes, I do, because you're at all-time highs. And when you look left, there is nothing there. So you have very, very limited data to assess and identify these key significant levels that you can trade off of. So it is a bit of a challenge. So that's why when we're just pushing in the all-time high after all-time high, I like to shift my focus into individual stocks that are not sitting at all-time highs, that are definitely tradable, that are setting up. So for example, today, Microsoft and Coin will get most of my focus and attention because those two stocks look great for some potential day trade opportunity today versus having to battle the spine to Qs as we're pushing the all-time highs. Just personal preference. I don't like trading stocks at all-time highs. But let's just go ahead and give you guys the main levels that you should focus on today. And it's an actual very simple day. So what we're going to do here is go top down. So let's just go ahead and mark up yesterday's high day on the SPY. Yesterday's high day was at 608.48. And we're just going to go ahead and create a zone up against Wednesday's close, Wednesday's high day, and yesterday's open. That gives us 3 little touch points to create this light zone of daily resistance between 607.66 to 607.91. Working our way on down. Let's go ahead and throw a zone up against yesterday's low of day and yesterday's close as well. That's going to be another light area, another light zone. All right, that's between 606.31 to 606.64. And then we have this nice daily gap that was created from Tuesday's high of day into Wednesday's low of day. So go ahead and throw that gap on up as well. The bottom end of that gap is at 604.17, and the top end of that gap is at 604.96. That's all you really have when looking at the daily time frame on the SPY. And when you drill down to lower time frames, there's still not a lot that stands out. So we're really just going to be working with those daily zones and daily levels today here on the SPY. Before we drill down into a 5-minute and start building some of those potential game plans, let's just go ahead and do the Qs and IWM as well. Then we'll go ahead and drill down into those lower time frames. And so we're pretty much doing the same exact thing with the Qs. We're going to go ahead and mark up yesterday's high a day. That's at 524.06. Those are all-time highs. Then we're going to create a zone up against Wednesday's close, Wednesday's high a day, and Thursday's open as well. So that's going to give us a lighter zone between 523.26 to 523.52. And definitely focus on when I say light and significant. So when I say it's a lighter zone, it's just a less significant zone that has fewer touch points. In a zone I'm not super convicted in necessarily just trading off of. They are lighter zones. They're areas of reference. I'm curious to see, are we going to really truly respect those zones intraday, and can we see any kind of actionable trade set up off of it? So when I say a lighter zone, it's just a zone that I don't have as much conviction and confidence with, but it's still an area that I want to keep on watch. When I say it's a key significant zone, I am absolutely willing to just trade from zone to zone when they're key, when they're significant. But these lighter zones definitely need more intraday confluences before taking those trades. All right, working our way down. Next lighter zone here on the Qs will be 521.43 to 521.80. And then we're just going to go ahead and mark up this gap on QQQ that was created from Tuesday's high a day into Wednesday's low a day. That gives us a gap from 517.16 up to 519.62. That is all of the daily analysis that we can do here on the Qs. And then we go into IWM. You know, when I look at IWM, I'm just not a fan of what I see. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and mark that zone back up that we were looking at here yesterday for a short trade off of. And that zone that we had here on IWM was between 239.26 to 239.84. That same zone that we bounced off of Tuesday and Wednesday as well. We cracked that zone yesterday, was looking for a crack and retest, never got it. But if we were to see it come back up to that zone and back test it again and stay below it as resistance, there could be some downside today. But to the flip side, I always want to look at the opposite side of the market, not just look at a potential short opportunity, but look at the potential long as well. What if we see it snap back above a pretty nice level of support that we cracked yesterday? What if we snap back above it? I'd look to see if we put in a higher low off of that level and see if we get a nice higher low push off of a very nice level of daily support. So it really comes down to what do we see intraday on those lower time frames. If we are below that zone, holding below it as resistance, I would look to get short. If we are above this zone at the open, as long as we come down into it intraday and hold it as support, I would consider getting long off that level on IWM, again, because it is a nice key significant level of prior support. Now, where would we look to take it short to if the short sets up? I would say back down into yesterday's close and yesterday's low a day. That would give you a target down between 237.76 to 238.06. That's if we see it setting up short. If we see it setting up to the long side, I would just set a first target up against yesterday's high a day. That would put you at 240.89. But it really comes down to what's IWM going to do off that zone between 239.26 to 239.48. And that's such a significant point here on IWM for today. I'm going to make that my line in the sand. So whatever happens off that level, we'll just look to trade accordingly to next level, to next level. So let's go ahead and drill this down into a 5-minute time frame, and let's see what we have going on with IWM. We are above that line in the sand. So that's our make or break. We just need to sit back and wait and see what IWM is doing off that zone. So game plan 1, we open above the zone, pull back into it, hold it to support. I'm looking to trade IWM long and play calls off that zone up into yesterday's high a day is my main target. That's at 240.89. That's my first game plan on IWM. That's to the long side. But if we see IWM open, crack below that zone, retest it, and stay below it as intraday resistance, that's where I would enter short and look to play puts on down into yesterday's close and yesterday's low of day down around 238. So that is going to be your long plan and your short plan for today on IWM with your 2 targets as well. All right. Moving on to the Qs. What do we got on the Qs? Again, we were looking at yesterday's low of day and close being our lits. That's our line in the sand. That is going to be our make or break. Same thing applies to the SPY. That zone we created up against yesterday's low of day and close, that's going to be our line in the sand. That's our make or break. So we're going to trade accordingly how we trade off those line in the sand levels. So if the Qs open above that zone, which in the next 7 minutes looks like we will, just want to see if the Qs pull back into that zone and hold it to support today. If that's what we see taking place, I'm looking to get long on the Qs up into our next zone of resistance between 523.26 to 523.52 as my first target. And then my next target would be all-time highs, yesterday's high a day on the Qs. That's going to be the long plan if we come down into that key level and hold it as support. That's where I get long and look to play calls from around 521.50 up towards around 523.50 and then 524.06 being those all-time highs. But you always want to look at the opposite side, right? Don't come in and be biased. Oh, I'm just looking for the long. I'm only building a long plan. Build a short plan as well and have it in place just in case, because who's to say we come down and hold that zone of support? What if we see a nice strong crack below that zone today? I would want to see, do we retest it as intraday resistance? And if so, that's where I would be confident to get short and play puts down into those lower gap levels here on the Qs. So if we see that zone crack, we see a proper intraday retest, that's where I want to enter to the short side, somewhere around 521.50. First target would be the top end of that daily gap at 519.62. And then if we ever fall inside the gap and stay inside the gap, I would hold a runner down to my final target, and that would be 517.16 here on QQQ. That's going to be your long plan. And that's going to be your short plan with your targets for today as well. And then lastly, we got the SPY, and the SPY is going to be the same exact thing as the Qs. We have that line in the sand up against yesterday's low and close between 606.31 to 606.65. Long plan, come down to that zone, hold it to support. That's what we see taking place. That's where I get long and play calls up to our next daily zone of resistance, which is between 607.66 to 607.91. That would be my first target. Second target and final target would be yesterday's high a day, or those all-time highs at 608.48. That's the long plan. All right. Short plan, complete opposite. We come down to that zone, we crack it. Wait for it to, retest. If we see a proper crack and a proper retest, that's where I'm looking to enter short and play puts down to the top end of that daily gap. Top end of the daily gap, first target would be 604.96. Then if we see the SPY get inside the gap and stay inside the gap, my final target today would be the bottom end. And that's going to put you down here at 604.15. So that's going to be the long plan and the short plan with your targets today here on the SPY. All right. Do we have any questions about the SPY, the Qs, or IWN? The analysis, the technicals, the plans. Any questions? I want to make sure you guys are 100% prepared for the day. But I think we could see some decent setups, some actionable trades, IWM, Qs, and the SPY. But again, a lot of my focus will be here on Microsoft. I think we have a nice short off that 446 zone, back down to like 442. And then coin, I think we could have a nice short set up around 336 for the drop back down towards around like 316. So those are my top 3 stocks on watch for today, guys. All right. I guess we're all set. We got 3 minutes to market open. For those of you that tuned in over on YouTube, appreciate it. Hopefully you guys took some value from the stream. And hopefully you guys are all set, ready to rock for the day. But have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Trade smart, trade safe. And we will see you back here Monday morning at 9 a.m. for our next stream.